You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristodoulou.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristodoulou, and today we're diving into the Week 4 slate of games. I'll be making my picks, going over my thoughts and opinions on the matchup, giving you score predictions, all that and more. Today we're doing all 4 games rather than just the 2 and 2 that I've been doing. I've been sick this week, and I've also been working this week like crazy, so my week has just been kind of a cluster F, and I needed to give myself some time, so I figured I'll just do it all in bulk today. Games start tomorrow. Some really good matchups, a lot of fun matchups at that. But make sure you comment down below. Let me know, who do you think comes out winners here in week number 4? And we shall just dive right into the thick of things, beginning with Saturday's games. And I'm also reading my notes off my phone because my iPad, or not my iPad, my tablet, whatever it's called, is dead. So I'm looking at my phone because I got my notes on here. But looking at the first game on Saturday at 1 p.m. at Ford Field. This game is going to be on Fox for those of you looking for it on TV. We got the Houston Gamblers taking on the Philadelphia Stars. Gamblers coming off a massive victory, their first of the season last year, playing a pretty clean game offensively, which ultimately led to that win. And then the Stars, back-to-back losses now, really struggling on offense and kind of in a position right now where I don't really know what to make of them. For them to come out victorious in this game, I think it's going to take some really good offensive line play. I'm a little bit concerned about that group right now currently for the Stars. Their inability to open up running lanes or even protect their quarterback has just been kind of awful to watch. They're averaging only 52 yards per game rushing, which is the league worst, and they're already sitting at 12 sacks allowed on the season. That's 4 sacks a week through the first 3 of the year. Also the league high. So you got to establish some sort of running game. You have to tighten up on the offensive line. Darnell Holland and Matt Colburn are too talented to be totaling, what was it last week that they had, like maybe 30-something yards between the two of them? I think that's like overestimating. I don't know what the exact number is, but you have way too much talent at the running back position to just be throwing the football each and every single play and putting Case Cookus in harm's way. This is an offense that works really well and gels well when you're running a balanced attack, and the Stars need to figure that out. As for the defensive side of the ball, they finally got the pass rush going last week, albeit against a Pittsburgh Maulers offensive line that has been struggling themselves this year. So with the league's best passing defense at 146 yards a game, they're looking pretty good now, picking up some steam. If they can just put that all together, force Kenji Bahar to make some mistakes, because that seems to be the recipe for success against the Gamblers, is force Kenji Bahar to make those errors. They have a good shot of winning this game, I'll say that, but it's definitely not going to be easy. The Gamblers offense has been able to move the ball very consistently every single week. It's just those turnovers that have been holding them back, and when they finally were able to clean it up, they found themselves their first victory of the season. They're averaging 34 points on the year, so the Gamblers have been moving aggressively this year. It's not like they're having a hard time getting the points. It's mainly just been turnovers and defense for the most part. Mark Thompson and TJ Pledger look fantastic as a running back duo, and I think that's something that they really need to focus on this going into this game here against the Philadelphia Stars. If they can lean on the running backs to take pressure off of Kenji Bahar, I think that the Gamblers have a really good shot at dumping another load of points on another team. Like I said, Gamblers have had no trouble moving the ball. It's just a lot of turnovers have been holding them back, and a lot of them have been coming from Kenji Bahar for the most part. As for the defense, this is where things get a little bit murky for the Gamblers here. They have the worst passing defense in terms of yards per game at 256 and 8 touchdowns allowed, second only to the Showboats. So, I mean, you have got to figure it out and tighten it up on the defensive side of the ball. This is very clearly not the defense we saw last year through 3 weeks now, and their biggest issue seems to be communication. And for the way I see it, if they can just kind of get on the same page defensively, especially when it comes to their pass coverage assignments, this defense could be better, and this team overall could be a lot better, and maybe in a better position where they're not 1-2 and maybe they're 2-1 as opposed to where they are right now. However, they're very good at stopping the run, and if you can put the Stars into a position where they've already been struggling to run the football as is, if you can make them one-dimensional, it seemed to really affect their offense, and that gives the Gamblers a really good shot at coming out victorious in this game. As for who I think ultimately wins the matchup here, this one was a little bit of a tough one here because there's still a piece of me that kind of believes in the Stars. I'm just having a hard time going with how poor that offensive line has looked. And I think I'm going to go with the Gamblers as the victors in this game. I have them winning 29-20. I think that, maybe the Stars get a little bit going against somewhat of a softer defense from the Gamblers this year, but ultimately the Gamblers have just been able to dump points week after week after week, and I can't really count against the Gamblers offense right now. If they play clean, they're putting 30-something points. Like I said, 34 points a game the last 2 weeks. The only game where they didn't hit that 30 mark was in week number 1. So if you're able to just keep on scoring the way you have been, the Stars haven't had more than 13 points in the last 2 weeks. I like their chances. Looking at the second game on Saturday, this one's at 7:30 p.m., also from Ford Field. NBC and Peacock will be hosting this one if you're looking to watch on the television. We got the Memphis Showboats taking on the Michigan Panthers, who dropped their homecoming game last week and are looking to make up for it this week. Showboats remain the only winless team in the USFL right now, and it's just not been looking very good for them. They've been in some of the games, but whether it's blown assignments at the end of the game or just getting completely demolished by the Stallions a couple of weeks ago, there has been a lot of uncertainty surrounding this team offensively and even defensively. When I look at the Showboats offense, it's good to see that Cole Kelly got the opportunity last week and actually looked pretty solid. It felt like he brought a little bit of a spark to the offense, so I expect to see him get the quarterback 1 spot this week and lead the way going into the game. But for me, you just have to lean into your playmakers. There are 2 players on this team that I really like right now on the offensive side of the ball, and that's running back Alex Collins, who I think is a really good player. You just need to scheme to his ability and draw some plays up for him to be that playmaker from the backfield that he is. And on top of that, you have a wide receiver in Ryan McDaniel who seems to be emerging. He has 9 catches now for 144 yards and a couple of touchdowns. There are playmakers on this offense. I just feel like the offense is so vanilla and predictable. Scheme some things up. Makes, I don't know what you need to necessarily do or change. I'm not a coach, but you have got to add a little more. Give me some sprinkles. Give me a cherry on top. Give me some chocolate sauce in that offense there, because right now it's vanilla and it's not fooling anyone, and nobody really seems to care for it. So let's get the ground game going early. Again, lean into Alex Collins. He can run the football. He can also catch out of the backfield and just try to, move the offense a little bit more. Maybe Cole Kelly's a spark, and I'm beating a dead horse right now because things might be a little bit different this week. But as of right now, other than just the little bit of flash of life I got from Cole Kelly last week during that game, I don't really believe in the Showboats offense. But there are guys that I think you can lean into and be successful with. As for the defense, not a lot has really gone right for them. Listen to this. I literally have a list of stats here for how poor this defense has been here. Listen to these numbers. They're allowing 33 points a game. That's the league high. They're allowing 370 yards a game, also a league high. They have allowed 68 first downs, which is the most in the league by 9. The next team behind them is 9 back at 57, right? 59, excuse me. Then from there, they are allowing a 61% third down conversion rate. That is the worst by almost 20%. The exact number is 18. That is awful. You are literally letting offenses convert on nearly 2/3 of their opportunities on third down. You couldn't stop a nosebleed. It's crazy how poor this defense has been, and I really think it just comes down to communication. I mentioned this a little bit about the Gamblers, but they are like the definition of lack of communication. I don't think you need to look any further than Justin Hall's game-winning touchdown last week as a prime example of just the defense not being on the same page throughout. You need to know what's going on between you and the guys playing next to you there. The cornerback and the safety clearly not on the same page, whether it was a messed up assignment or somebody did not get the coverage right, whatever it may be. You don't just let a wide receiver walk into the end zone with, 20 seconds or so left on the clock here. They have got to get that sorted out. As for the Panthers, you look at them coming in this game. Yes, they got humbled last week, and I don't think a lot of people really saw it coming, myself included. They came back down to earth, and now we're sitting here with the question of, does Josh Love or Carson Strong end up being the quarterback going into this game here? As Love did get benched last week, and then Strong came in and he moved the football well enough for them to score a touchdown. He threw it into the end zone. But the way I see it, if you are going with Carson Strong, or even if it is Josh Love, you need to really lean into your ground attack. The way you look at these two running backs here, and Reggie Corbin and Steve V. Scott, you cannot shy away from their ability and utilizing them to their absolute potential potentials. They combined for a whopping 414 yards and 3 touchdowns on 78 touches. They've been an impressive duo, whether it's catching out of the backfield or running the football. Lean into your strengths, especially if you're going with Carson Strong this week. You don't want to thrust him in there at the quarterback 1 spot and then, have his head spinning in circles because you're trying to force him to throw the football 30 plus times a game. Lean into your strong running game. You have talented running backs, and there are some solid wide receivers there as well, but lean into your stars, which is, I believe, found in your running back room. Go after it on the ground, establish a solid running game so you can open things up, quick passes, play action, whatever it may be for your quarterback, whoever it ends up being. As for the defense, you need to look at last week and basically just scrap it and throw it into the trash, because that was not the defense we saw in weeks 1 and 2, and that's what you want to be doing. I do kind of want to chalk that up to them just struggling to deal with a mobile quarterback and a really good running game. I'd argue that the Generals have one of the best offensive lines in the USFL right now. So dealing with such a mobile quarterback, and on top of that, you have a really good running back in Darius Victor, I think that's really how you can chalk that up, because that was the first time they really had to deal with a seriously threatening dual threat quarterback on top of a strong running game as well. So focus on the positives from your first 2 weeks. Go back to what worked. You don't necessarily have to deal with mobility as far as the quarterback goes in this game, and I think you should be all right. Now, as for who I think ends up winning this game here, I kind of tossed this one around a little bit because I thought, what are the odds that the Showboats now go 0-4 and they just continue to fall down this pit that they seem to be falling into? But I don't really know if I can bet against the Panthers with how solid they looked the first 2 weeks. And again, like I talked about, a very talented running back room, whereas when you look at the Showboats offensively, it's potential talent that I think could thrive if the game plan is right for them, and I don't know if that's going to be the case going into week number 4. So I'm going to take the Panthers on this one here, and I don't necessarily think it's going to be a very pretty game on the Showboats end. I have the Panthers taking this one 34-23 in a pretty strong one-sided affair, more so where if you're getting to 23 as a Showboats, it's a garbage time score or something like that. Apologize to you Showboats fans, but I don't really think this one's going to be pretty coming from the Panthers. As for the Sunday games, we got 2 matchups as well. This one first is an afternoon game at 3 p.m. emanating from Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton, Ohio. This game will be on NBC and Peacock. We have the New Orleans Breakers taking on the New Jersey Generals, 2 teams that are pretty much coming in hot. You have the Generals. Wow, not the Gamblers. The Generals coming in on back-to-back victories, and it seems like they've really kind of figured out what their offense is all about at this point now. And then you have the Breakers, who not only have had an excellent passing game through 3 weeks, but have established an unbelievable rushing attack. If there is a team that challenges the Generals for best offensive line, it would be the Breakers, but I'll still give the edge to the Generals. I like the way that they play just a little bit more. They're very physical up front. They protect the quarterback well. Maybe it's a combination of DeAndre Johnson being elusive in the pocket, but they do a good job there. Running game has been excellent, so I do give a slight edge to the Generals, just my personal opinion, and I'm a Breakers fan. But both teams are coming in very hot. When I look at the Breakers, Wes Hills has been phenomenal. Talk about a find. You bring him in week 2, he lights it up. He comes in again, lights it up, back-to-back weeks with 3 touchdowns. That does not happen very often. He's looking at 301 yards and those 6 touchdowns in just 2 games. He has been phenomenal for this offense that's been very pass-heavy and now has the most balanced offense, I would say, in the league, because you have a running back that can torch somebody and a quarterback, a seasoned veteran who can torch you through the air as well. McLeod Bethel-Thompson, also been awesome. He's been lights out for this team and has been great, especially in the clutch late in the games when he's needed the most. The Generals have one of the best defenses in the league, though, so this will be one of those games where this offense really gets tested here. The Generals are no slouch when it comes to getting after the quarterback, playing against the pass, defending the run, whatever it may be. They do a pretty good job at everything. Probably one of the more well-rounded defenses in the USFL at this very moment, so this will be a test for the offense. But just lean into your strengths. You have a strong wide receiver core, good quarterback, good running back room as well. See what you got going for you, but this is going to be a tall test for the Breakers, but one that I do think that they could potentially stand up to and come out successful. As for the defensive side, this is where my concerns lie for the New Orleans Breakers, because you can't win every single shootout, and they have allowed 31 points in back-to-back weeks, which is very concerning to me. Whether you're slowing teams down or you're just allowing big plays to happen here or there that ultimately end up in field goals and or touchdowns. You have got to figure out this allowing teams to score, especially when they get themselves into the red zone. You're definitely going to need to find an answer in this one here, and you kind of saw it with the way the Stallions play, because Alex Magoo is very mobile himself, but you have DeAndre Johnson, you have Darius Victor, a really strong 1-2 punch that can leave your head spinning trying to figure out who's going to be the one running with the football when it's in their hands or when they're just going up to the line for a snap. So you have a strong run defense. How does it fare against the dual threat of what the Generals bring to the table? I don't really know, and I'm a little bit concerned about how this plays out. But again, the Breakers have been pretty strong against the run. I'll be very curious to see how they handle this offense that the Generals have seemed to kind of figured out and has found a lot of success with. My tongue falling all over the place there. As for the Generals, offense seems to have found a recipe for success. Like I've been mentioning, Darius Victor has been phenomenal. 274 yards total, 3 touchdowns so far in the year for him. And like I already praised, one of the best offensive lines in the USFL, if not the best in the USFL at this very point. Very physical up front, bring it to the Breakers front 7, and just kind of keep doing what you're doing. I think when you're not relying on your passing game too much, and they're finally doing the whole single quarterback thing, it seems like, because DeAndre Johnson just played the entire game last week and did not have any disturbances in his time under center, which is what I love to see. I've been, complaining about the Generals doing that since last season. So just pound the rock, rely on your very elusive quarterback and your running back, who seems to be able to break a 50-something yard play whenever he seems to think it's necessary. So rely on your ground game. DeAndre Johnson can play really well, especially when he's doing well rushing the football. I think him throwing the football looks a lot better when you're scheming up run designs for him as well, because it takes some of the pressure off his shoulders. I don't think DeAndre Johnson is the greatest passer in the USFL right now, but he's definitely solid enough that if you can get him moving with his legs and keep the defenses guessing and open things up for his receivers a little bit more, because defenders might lean a little closer to the line of scrimmage because you're worried about DeAndre Johnson breaking you for 10 yards or something like that, things start to open up and he sees the field a lot better. So design some runs for DeAndre, and the rest will kind of work itself out. As for the defense, if you're the Generals, you're coming into this one basically thinking we need to have our absolute best game defensively of the year so far. Neutralizing Wes Hills has got to be like your number one priority. I know I talked about how good McLeod Bethel Thompson has been this year, but Wes Hills in 2 games is averaging 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. That is very problematic. If you can't stop the run, it's demoralizing. You're getting beat up at the point of attack each and every single time you see Wes Hills getting the football. You cannot get bullied by the offensive line of the Breakers, and they've done a really good job of doing that to defensive fronts. So you have to be ready and be physical up at the point of attack on this one here. If you can neutralize Wes Hills, you become a little bit more one-dimensional, and you don't necessarily have to worry about as much. McLeod Bethel Thompson is not going to be torching you on the ground and ripping you for 10 yards every time he takes off. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He's not the most mobile quarterback in the world. He is a pure pocket passer. He can maybe take a run here or there, but he's not going to burn you for anything. As for the other key factor you need to focus on here, you need to make sure you are shutting things down on third down. When it comes to those third downs, the Breakers are the best in the USFL, converting on about 54% of their attempts. So it's pretty much a toss-up there. They're either going to make it or they're not. And for the most part, they've looked really good so far this year on third down. So if you can win on third down, I think you have a shot of defeating this Breakers team. As for who comes out victorious in this one here, I want to say that defenses might win out in this one, because the Generals' offense, like I said, has been solid, but not necessarily the most impressive. It seems like they're kind of figuring themselves out now, but like the first couple of weeks, it was kind of like 50-50 to me, where like they looked good in some spots, but not in others. So while I want to say that defenses might have the upper hand here, I believe that the Generals have actually truly figured out what they're doing. The running game has been awesome. They've had 2 games where they nearly totaled 200 yards on the ground at this point. And on top of that, the Breakers have a very aggressive offense, and they can kind of beat you both ways. It's like the perfect 1-2 punch, where your passing game is punch 1 or your running game is punch 2, and vice versa, rather than it being like your 1-2 punch running back or your 1-2 punch with your quarterback to your wide receiver. Like, no, your entire offense and your entire, whether it's running or passing game, is a very aggressive and awesome 1-2 punch altogether. So I think this game ends up being a little high scoring, and I think this one comes down to the wire. I'm going to go ahead and take the Breakers on this one here, 31-30. I think this one can go either way. I would be very shocked to walk away from this game having seen one team get absolutely blown out of the water. The Breakers defense, like I said, has allowed a lot of points, so I think the Generals have a good opportunity to find their way into the end zone. But ultimately, I just give the slight edge to the Breakers, mainly because I believe in their passing game a lot more than I do the Generals right now. Both teams can run the football really well, but I give the edge in terms of the passing attack to the Breakers here. So I like them just a little bit more. McLeod Bethel-Thompson has proven, as the vet that he is, that he can be the calm hand that leads the team through the storm when things get rough towards the end of the game. And I really like what he's been doing so far for New Orleans. As for the final game, 6:30 p.m., this is also at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium. This game will be on FS1 primetime on a Sunday. I love that we get these games. It literally feels like, and because I'm a big NFL guy, it feels like Sunday night football, but it's a little bit earlier, and I appreciate that because I got to get up early for work. So the fact that we're getting 6:30 p.m. kickoffs, I am here for it. And the games end fast. They're like a little bit over 2 hours. Not like the NFL where you get a game that starts at 7:30 and it's done at like 10:30 because the games take 3 and some change to get done. We have the Stallions, who are looking to bounce back defensively after allowing 45 points to the Breakers last week in a massive ground game that the Breakers just kind of walked all over their defense, although the Stallions have been dealing with a lot of injuries. And the Maulers, who are coming out with a big, very first victory last week and are looking to use that very strong defense to shut things down against the Stallions offense that really hasn't had any trouble scoring this year. While, you know, the Stallions are coming off their first loss, and maybe a shocker to some, it's not like it's the offense that has been stopped or anything like that. The offense has been doing their thing week in and week out. It's just the defense seems to have some cracks in the armor right now, and I think that's chalked up to some of the injuries that they've been dealing with. Maulers are definitely going to be a tough task for the Stallions offensively. The way I see it right now, the Stallions are as good as advertised. They have played every single team really, really well. There is a very clear pool of talent on the Maulers' defensive side of the football, and I don't think that the Stallions are going to come in or anything like that and expose them. I think that the Maulers are as good as advertised, and I think the Stallions are going to have their hands full. You got to make sure that you're keeping pressure off of Alex Magoo. The Maulers are about middle of the road in terms of getting to the quarterback. They have 7 sacks on the year, and the Stallions have also allowed 8 sacks on the season, which is third most. So protecting Alex Magoo against a pretty aggressive front 7 over there in Pittsburgh should be one key thing you're looking at on offense, and also finding a way to fight through the Maulers' league best run defense. They have only allowed 1 rushing touchdown this season so far through 3 weeks, so you need to find a way to pound that rock into the end zone, because while we look at the Stallions offense and their passing game has been very prolific, the Maulers defense, again, is good. They're good when it comes to rushing the passer and bringing in pressure. Pretty good secondary as well. I'm very impressed with what the Maulers have going on here. And if they can figure it out on offense, they can be a problematic team down the stretch. But this is not going to be a pushover defense. And I really think that this will probably end up being one of the lower totals that the Stallions put up on the board for the season. So just keep an eye on that. But you've got to find a way to run the football successfully against what has been a stout Maulers run D. As for the defensive side of the ball, you allowed 9 plays of 20-plus yards against the Breakers last week. That is obviously not a recipe for winning football on the defensive side. However, focusing on the offensive line of the Pittsburgh Maulers, that has been, I don't even know if I could say average at best. I mean, they have been below average at best, I would honestly say. If you can just be aggressive up front and take advantage of a weak Maulers offensive line, you should have a really good shot of shutting down this offense here. Containing Troy Williams is probably going to be the biggest point of emphasis for the defense. Again, he came in and he sparked a little bit of life in the Maulers and led them to their very first offensive touchdown of the year. And on top of that, he's clearly brought a bit of a spark, and he's a dual-threat quarterback at that. And that seems to be a common factor. Teams seem to be struggling a little bit more with the dual-threat quarterbacks. So if Troy Williams isn't under pressure and you're not getting to him in time and you're allowing him to make plays with his legs or giving him time to find a guy that's open because he can extend plays with his legs, you might have a problem. So trying to contain him as much as possible is another key that I think that they really need to focus on defensively. For the Mauler side of things, like I just mentioned, Troy Williams looking really good, having brought some life to this Pittsburgh offense. The offensive line is where I look at them and I go, if you can just figure this out, they could be a legit contender. I really believe that. And they're probably going to be one of those teams where even if they do figure out their O-line, it might not be the most prolific offense that you're going to see. They're going to win by basically putting the clamps on you defensively and just kind of beating you into submission and being one of those, like, they're ugly football type of offense is kind of how I look at the Pittsburgh Maulers right now. Their defense is probably tops in the league, and it's just a matter of finding some semblance of offense that can get you, 20 to 24 points while your defense is over there putting the opposing offense in like a headlock. But if the offensive line play can get better, opening up those running lanes, protecting the quarterback, I think you have a chance. But opening up the run game has got to be probably the biggest thing that they're looking at right now. Madre London and Garrett Groshek combined are averaging just 3.1 yards per carry, and if you can't get anything going on the ground, especially against a team like the Stallions who can, they can run the football fairly well. They have a mobile quarterback that helps with that. And on top of that, they're really good at passing the football, and they can kind of open up their playbook a little bit, setting up play action, be it because Alex Magoo is athletic. And if they get a solid running game going, you kind of have to trust that, or you have to not trust, but you have to account for the running back getting the football there and potentially, Magoo beating you with his legs and or taking a shot downfield. If you can't match that at the very least, 3.5 to maybe 4 yards per carry, I don't really see the Maulers having a shot of coming out of this game as victors, because you're going to have to put up, I would say, to beat the Stallions, probably like 21 to 24 points at the very least. And that's if like your defense has an outstanding game. And speaking of the defense, no one has really, like I mentioned earlier, found a way to slow down this Stallions offense. But I think if there's a team that might have an answer for it, it could potentially be this Pittsburgh Maulers team. Containing Alex Magoo and forcing him to throw more than he wants to, I think, is going to be the way you ultimately come out successful on defense in this game here. While Alex Magoo has looked really good, I'm kind of in a place right now where I almost feel like he might be benefiting just a little bit more from how talented some of the skill players are around him. There is a lot of talent on that Stallions offense this year, and it's pretty impressive how good they've looked. It's the defense that has been hurt and just struggling to kind of match the effort the offense has been putting in that kind of put the Stallions in the spot that they ended up last week. You need to find a way to neutralize Davian Davis, Jace Sternberger. I mean, there are just a litany of guys on that offense who can make a play. And I think if you can force Magoo to stay inside the pocket, or at least just get to him quick enough that he doesn't really have the opportunity to process what's going on and then break a big run if he's not seeing anything he likes, and you get to him while he's in the pocket, I think you have an opportunity to really disrupt what the Stallions are doing on offense. And if there's a defensive front that can do it, I believe in the Maulers. Again, tall task. Nobody has really figured out a way to slow the Stallions, but bring the pressure to Alex Magoo. Don't let him just sit back in the pocket and then make a decision comfortably. You need to essentially force him to make decisions. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. Force him to make decisions in situations that he might not necessarily be certain about doing. That's where I think you'll start to get the mistakes and get some of the Alex Magoo that we saw last year, as opposed to what we've been seeing so far for the majority of this year. As for who comes out victorious in this game, for me, I would love to confidently pick the Maulers in this one for like a massive upset, but I just don't think that's possible for me to do. I look at the Maulers as a team that they have got to sort out their offensive line, and then when they do, then we can talk about them pulling off of a massive victory like this. I think the Maulers are going to be good for a few more wins this season, but I don't really know if it's going to be against the Stallions team. And there's potential that we see some guys like Scooby Wright come back for the Stallions this week. And if he's back and the defense is starting to get healthy, then you're kind of running into a problem as the Maulers. So with that in mind, I have the Stallions winning this one. I have them winning 28-17. I want to give the Maulers offense a little bit more credit, but until I see like a full game of Troy Williams and how they handle a team like the Stallions, I just don't know if I can really go with them. Yes, I know that they won their game last week. I get it. Don't get me wrong. However, I need to see a little bit more from the Maulers before I start confidently picking in them to win games, especially against a team like the Stallions, who, for me, in my power rankings, I have them ranked as the second best team in the league right now. But those are my picks for week number 4. Again, comment in the comment section down below. Let me know, who do you think comes out victorious this week? Do you have The Breakers continuing to 4-0. Do the Stallions bounce back? Do the Stallions take a big loss to the Maulers there? Obviously, the Panthers in a weird place now, losing their home opener last weekend, trying to bounce back from that. There's a lot to look at this week and a lot of intrigue. Last week really flipped the league on its head in terms of just the way you kind of look at it, with teams that kind of felt like they were running away with things early and teams that were kind of falling behind. Last week was definitely a big flip-flop for what I think a lot of people expected to see. So let me know your thoughts and opinions on that, and also my picks. Am I getting things right? What am I missing? All that and more. Would love to hear your thoughts and opinions, but I appreciate you for watching if you made it all the way to the end. I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.